So the approach that I'm sharing with you guys in this video is intended to give you a very concrete, succinct, and simple way of approaching the figure that doesn't feel too overwhelming. Many of the courses that I've taken over time and many of the teachers that I've had all gave me excellent advice. The only problem is by the time you put it all together, it just feels so overwhelming. It's almost choking you. So I wanted something that will cut through everything and give you a very simple procedure in terms of drawing the figure. So hopefully this is helpful to you guys. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. And I'm just going to let it rip. We are going to be focusing on the fundamentals of drawing the figure. One of the key things that I do every time I introduce somebody to the figure is to make it painfully clear that we are going to avoid curved lines. That is, in my opinion, the number one mistake when people begin drawing the figure. They start to get into all these unnecessary curves, and it's been my experience over the 20 years that I've been teaching that when you draw a curved line, it's probably wrong. We as humans tend to draw curved lines incorrectly. However, when we actually measure an angle, we tend to get that right. So the idea here is to keep all your lines nice and clean, nice and flat, and then you can curve it all off at the end. Now you'll notice that as I am drawing this, I'm starting off with relatively large abstract shapes. So you want to keep them nice and simple, nice and big, and keep them as basic as you can. I literally started with a rectangle for the head. And then I add other shapes that start to kind of indicate some of the smaller form that belongs both inside the head and on the outside. So my approach is not to move from drawing the head over to the hand or over to the shoulder. I don't think in those terms. Really, the way I think of it is that the figure is made up of different shapes, and I'm looking for the most basic recognizable shapes that I can find. So as you saw with the hand, I actually started off with pretty much a triangle and then started to break that down into smaller pieces. And I'm always going to work in this fashion. I'm going to look to see with every object that I encounter, or every piece of the drawing that I encounter, what is the most basic fundamental form that I can find. And really, the way I think of it is it closest to a triangle, to a square, or to a circle? In this particular drawing style, I'm actually getting rid of anything circular, and I'm really thinking in terms of just triangles and squares. So that to me really makes anything approachable as long as you're really working from one shape to the next. And if I can get one shape right, then I can get the next shape right. Now, if you'll notice right now, I'm actually extending the line out from one point to another, and the same thing going from right where the fabric is up to the hand. And I'm making that connection because it's that connectivity that helps me get a very concrete drawing. I don't know where things belong until I actually put those lines in. So never be afraid to add those additional lines. They are very, very helpful. They're often called line extension or finding your coincidentals. There's a whole bunch of terms for them. I really don't care what they're called. What I care about is how to get a good, strong, solid drawing. And extending those lines and seeing where they lead is one of the best ways to do that. So it took me a long time in figure drawing to understand that really I don't need to copy what I'm seeing. And this is in regards to every form of drawing and painting. I don't need to copy what I'm seeing. What I'm really doing is interpreting what I'm seeing into something that makes sense to me, into shapes that make sense to me. And so, in the hierarchy of things that you want to focus on, you want to make sure that you've got your shapes right first. Then you're going to worry about your values, how light and dark something is. Then you're going to worry about your edges, how these shapes connect to one another, whether they're soft or hard or firm or lost. And then the last thing that's on my mind is really color. Color is a very, very broad topic, and I could spend hours just talking about that. But if my shapes are wrong, it doesn't matter how much color I put on. If my shapes are wrong, it doesn't matter how much value I put on or how much shading I do. It just won't look right. So shapes always come first. And that's why I spend so much time focusing on this. So again, notice how I'm connecting both shoulder blades down into the hip. And that line moving across gives me a lot of information, helps me get a clear understanding of a triangle shape that makes up the upper body and splits it down into the lower body. I also make a connection moving from the elbow into the knee. And what I'm really looking at is that negative space right between the elbow and the knee as its own shape. So that has its own form, and so does the positive shape of the figure itself. So I'm looking carefully between these different shapes. Now, as I move down into the leg, again, connecting from one point to another, looking for each angle. So when I talk about points, I'm talking about where lines meet. If there's a change in the line, that's basically a point, or sometimes referred to as an apex. So I'm moving apex to apex. So let's say you're drawing something and you're not quite sure where the line lands, right? This happens a lot in drawing. You're not exactly sure where it connects. The thing that I've learned to do is go in the opposite direction. If going up won't give you any concrete information, then go down. And if that won't give you any concrete information, then just go side to side. So no matter what, you're looking for some way of connecting one point to another. How does one apex line up to another? That is going to be one of the key tools that you're going to use in this style of just breaking everything down. One of the things I've failed to mention is the materials that I'm using. I'm actually using a colored pencil that is Faber-Castell. I love Faber-Castell. They make great product. And I'm using this blue colored pencil on top of rough newsprint. And I really like rough newsprint because it's got a little bit of tooth to it. It's easy to work with and it'll hold almost any medium. So I recommend doing that for sketches like these. In terms of longer drawings, I do not recommend this particular product. The pencil's fine, but the paper just isn't going to work out. It'll probably rip. But for something that you're just looking to get a quick study out, I mean, this whole thing is about 20 minutes that I've sped up into 10. This kind of paper will do it. Going back to the drawing, you'll notice that I'm starting to add just a little bit of shading in there. And the reason is because it's very easy for me to get confused between all the different shapes, especially as I start to get into the minutia, some of the smaller shapes in here. And so I need some way of differentiating one shape from the other. So that space in between the legs I actually shaded. Now I've indicated a marker as to where that space between the legs are. And it's again another reference point for me. I have my first foot out, and where I'm going to move from here is actually indicate where the other knee is. As I draw that knee, what you'll notice is I actually draw a line going from the top of that first knee, her right knee, down across into the left knee, which is laying underneath. I look for that angle, kind of get an indication of where that lands, and then I draw a line coming straight down, which happens to be coinciding with the line of the fabric. But if you look at the line moving from the hand down into the fabric to her elbow, over towards her knee, and to the second knee, you'll notice that I've created kind of an envelope. And this is known as envelope drawing. This is a style of drawing in which we encapsulate the entire figure into this so-called line that is known as an envelope. And this is yet another tool that I use in this method that allows me to get good, clean shapes, good, clean composition, and things that kind of fit into each other without the proportions being totally off. As I get that second foot in, this will finish up our drawing for today. I'll probably add in just a couple more refining details, but that's pretty much the end of the video. I want to thank you guys for watching. I encourage each of you to find a photo reference that you feel might be challenging, something that maybe you had difficulty with before. Try out these techniques, see how they work for you, and please let me know in the comments how it went. I love hearing back from people, and hopefully you have found some benefit to all of this. Remember that drawing and painting is a lifelong process. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys again in the next video, and I want to wish you guys luck out there. Happy drawing and painting.